In this tutorial, we will solve a system of linear equations using the substitution method. In order to use the substitution method, you need to choose the equation that has a variable that's isolated. When a variable is isolated, the expression on the other side will be your substitute. You're going to use that by removing the variable, the same variable as your isolated variable, from the second sentence, and you're going to erase it and replace it with the substitute. Let's get started. This is a very easy level question. The first equation has an isolated variable, and on the other side is the substitute. That means every time I see a letter y, I can erase it and replace it with a 4. So I'm going to take this second sentence, and I'm going to erase and replace the letter y. So now instead of having two equations, I have only one equation, and I've combined the information from both into a single sentence that has only one variable. A sentence with two variables is not solvable, but a sentence with one variable is. So 2x plus 4 equals 20 is my new equation, and I'm going to solve this by subtracting 4 from both sides, and then isolating my variable x by dividing. I now have half of my solution. Every system has two answers, an answer for x and an answer for y. Now this question is so easy, it's hard, because the answer for y is already given. So there's no more work to do. In this next question, there is a bit of work, but I still have an isolated variable, and that means that I have a substitute. This expression can go into the place of the letter y. So in my second sentence, I'm going to erase and replace the letter y. So I'm going to squeeze all of that into here. Now notice when I rewrite my sentence, I keep all of the symbols, 6x and the minus sign, but I remove by erasing the letter y and replacing it with parentheses. I'm going to squeeze in my new substitute. I no longer will use these sentences for the next few steps. I have a new equation. That equation needs to be solved. So I'm going to distribute this subtraction sign here. I'm going to combine like terms. And now I'm going to isolate my variable x by using inverse operations on both sides. Again, every system has two answers. I've only found one, that x is -3. Now I'm going to go back to my first two sentences. My first two sentences are these two right here. I can choose either one, but I'm going to choose the first one because it looks a little simpler to me. I'm going to choose the first sentence, and this time I'm going to erase and replace the letter x because I have an answer for x. So if x is -3, that means every time I see an x, I can replace it with a -3. So I'm going to do that work on the side here. Y equals 4x plus 13 is the equation I chose. X needs to be erased, and x needs to be replaced with its value. Now all I need to do is compute. Pick up your calculator, type 4 times -3 plus 13. You'll get the answer for y. Let's try another one. Again, I have two equations. One of my equations on the top here has a variable that's isolated. This time, the variable that's alone is the x. That means that every time I see the letter x, I can erase it and replace it with its substitute. its substitute is the expression y plus 10. In this sentence, I will erase and replace like that. So I'm going to rewrite the sentence that I chose, but instead of writing an x, I'm going to erase it and replace it with a y plus 10. Now I have a single sentence with one kind of letter only, the y. So I'm going to distribute. I'm going to combine like terms. I'm going to use an inverse operation. And I'm going to isolate my variable. Remember, that's only one of my solutions. I'm going to go back to the top here, and I'm going to look at my two original sentences, and I'm going to choose one of them. I like the top sentence because it tells me x equals, and that's what I want to know. So I'm going to choose my top sentence here, and I'm going to erase and replace the letter y. So up here I'm going to erase the letter y, and I'm going to replace it with a negative 13. And now all I need to do is compute. And there's our two solutions. You can substitute these two solutions into each statement so that you can check your work. So x is negative 3 and y is negative 13. In my first sentence, I would have negative 3 equals negative 13 plus 10. Negative 3 equals negative 3. That's true. And in my second sentence, when I erase and replace my variables, and I replace this, and I replace this, I'm going to get 6 plus negative 13 equals negative 7. And again, this statement is true. A solution must satisfy both equations in the system. Okay, let's take a look at one more question. I have an isolated variable, so now I have a substitute. I'm going to erase and replace the letter y with 10x plus 2. So in my second sentence, I write everything the same, but I erase and replace the letter y because that is what I have a substitute for. Now I have a single equation with one kind of letter. So I'm going to distribute. I'm going to combine like terms. And I'm going to isolate my variable x by using inverse operations. And I have half of my answer. I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to take the letter x, and I'm going to erase it and replace it with a negative 1. So erase the x, replace it with its substitute, which is negative 1. And now I can compute. 10 times negative 1 is negative 10. Negative 10 plus 2 is negative 8. And now I can check that these numbers satisfy both equations by erasing and replacing each variable. Okay, last one. This one actually has two isolated variables, so it doesn't matter which one you say is your substitute, because this can be placed into the position for y. So that means I'm going to erase this y and replace it with a negative 3x plus 20. The other side of my sentence will remain untouched. Now I have variables on both sides, but this is certainly something that we can solve. We use our inverse operations, and we'll get our final answer. x is equal to 8. One last step. Use either one of these sentences. It doesn't matter which one. But you have to remove the letter x and replace it with an 8. So I'm going to do this one. So y is equal to negative 3x plus 20, but I'm going to erase the letter x. I'm going to replace it with the number 8. And now all I need to do is compute. Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24, and negative 24 plus 20 is negative 4. And that's how you solve systems using substitution.